My name is Louise Mitchell. I've been commissioned by Hazelhurst Regional Gallery to bring together an exhibition of heritage and contemporary quilts. Quilts are a great example of everyday creativity by women, often who led quite modest lives, probably made never with an intention of being in an art gallery. They can tell us about hidden stories and ways families commemorate their own history. The earliest quilt in the exhibition was made by Lady Mary Fitzroy. Now, she was the wife of the governor. It's in the hexagon patchwork paper template technique. Her quilting came to an abrupt halt in 1847 when she was killed in a carriage accident outside Government House in Parramatta. The earliest quilts in the exhibition date from the mid-19th century. There was an explosion of printed cottons due in part to the Industrial Revolution. This quilt is made by a woman called Frederica Mary Josephine. She was the daughter of a convict who was an upholsterer. The contemporary work by Adrian Doig also uses the hexagon patchwork. Adrian is an artist who typically explores the notion of identity in her work. She has sourced unfinished patchwork projects from America, and in this case here she's used the hexagon patchwork in the background of this work called The View. From the 1860s onwards, with the introduction of aniline dyes, you get patchworks made from silk, and they're often very rich and jewel-like and suited the Victorian interiors. A new style of quilting that became very popular became known as crazy quilts. It's felt that the term crazy quilt could refer to the craze of Japanese ceramics, but also because the fad of making the quilts drove husbands crazy. In her later life, Marion Gibson made this friendship quilt, which she made from fabric, from wedding dresses, from the hat of a neighbour, from scraps of fabric from friends far and near. In a letter to her granddaughter, Marion Gibson wrote, "I called it the friendship quilt, and to me it was a labour of love and given to you as my eldest granddaughter." It's a mistake to think that in this period that quilts are made out of necessity, out of scrap material. It was a creative pastime that women enjoyed across class lines. Quilts tend to be seen as quite parochial items, but sometimes they can show an engagement with the wider world. Another quilt with patriotic themes is the Advance Australia quilt by Mary Jane Hannaford. She lived a very long life, and it appears that she made her quilts in her 80s. And in this quilt she has appliqued various Australian motifs to show her patriotic sentiment. This domestic wagga quilt was made by a woman called Marion Etz. She was a laundress and a market gardener. Her husband was a rabbiter. We know that he lost his job at one stage during the Depression. What I love about this quilt is the interesting selection of blankets that she used to create this very dynamic abstract pattern. The heritage of quilt making inspires contemporary practitioners and artists. There are 11 contemporary artists included in this exhibition, and their work addresses issues of the environment, gay rights and women's identity. The last heritage quilt we've included in the exhibition is what's called a Suffolk puff quilt by a woman called Florrie Bingley. In 1967 she entered this quilt in a local show and won first prize. Hazelhurst is running a public program where they're inviting the public to help them make a Suffolk puff quilt in the foyer. A quilt is more than a quaint bedspread. It can reveal a lot about our social history. It can tell us about women's art. It's an uncomfortable truth in history that women haven't always been able to show their creative works in a public sphere. So I've really enjoyed being able to find these quilts or, rediscover them in collections and bring them together in this exhibition.